I never imagined that the worst betrayal of my life would come with a smile and a cup of coffee. It was a Tuesday morning in October, the kind of crisp Seattle day where the air smells like rain and possibility. I was sitting in my usual spot, at Morrison Industries' executive conference room, reviewing quarterly reports when my twin sister Victoria walked in. She looked radiant. Designer blazer, perfect makeup, that confident stride that had carried her through Harvard Business School and into the hearts of every board member. But there was something different in her eyes that morning, something cold. "Good morning, Rachel," she said, setting down a steaming mug in front of me. "Your favorite, vanilla latte, extra shot." I should have known right then. Victoria hadn't brought me coffee in 15 years. She pulled out a leather portfolio and placed it on the mahogany table between us. The morning light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows caught the gold Morrison Industries logo embossed on the cover. Our grandfather's legacy, our father's empire, our shared inheritance. "I need you to sign this," she said, her voice steady as stone. I opened the portfolio and my world collapsed in an instant. Transfer of shares, resignation letter, non-compete clause. The words blurred together as my heart hammered against my ribs. "What is this?" I whispered. "It's your exit package, Rachel, effective immediately." The coffee cup slipped from my fingers, sending vanilla latte cascading across financial projections that no longer mattered. 23 years. I had given this company 23 years of my life. I was there when Dad had his first heart attack at 55. I was there when the 2008 recession nearly destroyed us. I was there through every late night, every crisis, every victory, and now my own twin sister was asking me to disappear. "Victoria, what are you talking about? We're partners. We've always been—" "No, Rachel." Her voice cut through my confusion like a blade. "I've been carrying you for years. The board agrees. It's time for you to step aside." I stared at her, searching for any trace of the sister who used to sneak into my room during thunderstorms, who cried with me when our parents divorced, who promised we'd run this company together someday. But the woman sitting across from me was a stranger. "I won't sign this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Victoria's smile didn't waver, but something dangerous flickered in her eyes. "Then I'll make sure you wish you had." She stood up, smoothed her blazer, and walked toward the door. But just before leaving, she turned back one last time. "Oh, and Rachel, I've already changed the security codes. Your keycard has been deactivated. Marcus will escort you out." The door closed with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the silence. That was the moment I realized I'd been living a lie for 23 years. My sister hadn't just decided to betray me that morning. She'd been planning it all along. Before we continue with this shocking story of family betrayal and corporate warfare, I want to ask you to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you're going to want to hear how this unfolds. And let me know in the comments, have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? Your stories matter to me. But what I discovered, the security guard who escorted me out wasn't Marcus, our longtime head of security who used to slip me extra cookies from the executive kitchen when I was a kid. It was some new guy with cold eyes and a tight grip on my elbow as he walked me through the lobby I'd called home for over 2 decades. Every employee we passed looked away. Some pretended to be busy with their phones, others suddenly found their computer screens fascinating. But I caught a few sympathetic glances, and one person, Janet from accounting, mouthed, "I'm sorry," when the guard wasn't looking. As we reached the revolving door, I heard my name called out. "Mrs. Morrison!" I turned to see Elena Vasquez, Dad's former assistant, who'd stayed on as the company historian after his retirement. She was rushing toward me with something clutched in her weathered hands. "I can't let you leave without this," she whispered urgently, pressing a manila envelope into my palm. "Your father asked me to give it to you if—" She glanced at the security guard. "If something like this ever happened." Before I could ask what she meant, the guard was pushing me through the door and onto the busy Seattle sidewalk. The envelope felt heavy in my hands, like it contained more than paper. I drove home in a daze, my mind spinning with questions. How long had Victoria been planning this? Who else was involved? And what was my father trying to tell me from beyond the grave? Our family home in Queen Anne Hill had always been my sanctuary, but that day it felt like a mausoleum. I sat in Dad's old study, surrounded by the smell of leather and old books, and opened Elena's envelope with trembling fingers. Inside were photocopies of bank statements, legal documents, and a handwritten letter in Dad's familiar scrawl. But it was the photograph that made my blood run cold. Victoria and a man I didn't recognize, standing outside a law firm in downtown Seattle. The timestamp showed it was taken 3 months before Dad's death. She was holding a briefcase and smiling, the same cold smile she'd given me that morning. I picked up Dad's letter with shaking hands. My dearest Rachel, if you're reading this, then my worst fears have come true. I discovered something about Victoria that I pray I'm wrong about, but I've learned to trust my instincts in business and in family. 3 months ago, I hired a private investigator to look into some irregularities in our financial reports. What he found broke my heart. Victoria has been siphoning money from the company for 2 years, hiding it in offshore accounts. But that's not the worst part. She's been working with someone, a man named David Chen, who runs a competitor called Pacific Northwest Logistics. They've been planning a hostile takeover, and she's been feeding him inside information about our contracts, our clients, everything. But here's what she doesn't know. I've been 1 step ahead of her. Check the safe in my bedroom closet. The combination is your birthday, month, day, year. What you find there will give you the power to fight back. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you while I was alive. I kept hoping I was wrong about your sister. But blood doesn't always mean loyalty, sweetheart. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who know exactly where to strike. Trust no one at the company except Elena. She's been documenting everything for me. Fight back, Rachel. You're stronger than Victoria ever gave you credit for. Love always, Dad. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the letter. I ran upstairs to Dad's bedroom, a space that had been left untouched since his passing. The safe was exactly where he said it would be, hidden behind a row of his favorite business books. My birthday, 04/15/1985. The safe clicked open, and inside I found something that would change everything. A USB drive labeled insurance policy and a second letter, this one sealed with red wax. I plugged the drive into Dad's old laptop, and what I saw made me physically sick. Hours of recorded phone conversations between Victoria and this David Chen, discussing not just the takeover, but something far more sinister. Victoria's voice, clear as crystal. The old man's getting suspicious. We need to move faster. David's reply. How much faster? I'm thinking we don't wait for him to retire naturally. His heart medication has been making him dizzy. One bad fall down those marble stairs in the lobby. Victoria, are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying accidents happen. And if they do, I inherit everything as the surviving business partner. I ripped the headphones off my ears, my stomach churning. My sister hadn't just betrayed the company. She'd been planning to murder our father, but Dad had died of a heart. I spent the next 3 days locked in Dad's study, going through every document, every recording, every piece of evidence he'd collected. The picture that emerged was of a conspiracy that went deeper than I'd ever imagined. Victoria hadn't been working alone. David Chen was just the beginning. She'd cultivated allies throughout the company, people I'd trusted, people I'd considered friends. The betrayal was like poison spreading through my veins. But it was the phone call on Friday night that made me realize just how dangerous my situation had become. I was reviewing financial documents when my home phone rang. The caller ID showed unknown number. Hello, Rachel. Victoria's voice was silk over steel. I heard you've been asking questions. What do you want, Victoria? I want you to stop digging into things that don't concern you anymore. You're no longer part of Morrison Industries. What happens there is none of your business. Our father's murder is my business." The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. When she spoke again, her voice was completely different. Cold, calculating, dangerous. "You always were the smart twin, Rachel. But smart doesn't always mean wise. Sometimes it just means you know enough to get yourself killed." The line went dead, and I sat staring at the phone, my heart pounding. She'd just threatened me. My own sister had threatened to kill me just like she'd killed our father. I tried calling Elena, but her phone went straight to voicemail. I tried Janet from accounting, same thing. One by one, everyone who might have helped me had gone silent. That's when I realized Victoria wasn't just covering her tracks. She was hunting me. Saturday morning, I woke up to find my car's tires slashed. Sunday, my home security system mysteriously malfunctioned. Monday, I received an eviction notice for a house I owned outright, claiming I was behind on mortgage payments for a loan I'd never taken. Victoria was systematically destroying my life, and she was doing it with surgical precision. But she'd made one mistake. In all her planning, she'd forgotten about the one person who knew her better than anyone else in the world. We'd shared a womb for 9 months. We'd shared secrets, dreams, and fears for 35 years. I knew exactly how her mind worked, and I knew her one weakness. Victoria had always been obsessed with our mother's approval. Even after Mom moved to Portland following the divorce, Victoria called her every Sunday at exactly 2 p.m. They'd talk for hours about Victoria's latest achievements, her latest victories, her perfect life. Mom had no idea what Victoria really was, and Victoria would do anything to keep it that way. So I called Mom myself. "Rachel, sweetheart, I was just thinking about you. Victoria told me you decided to take some time off from the company. She said you were feeling overwhelmed." Of course she did. Victoria's lies were already spreading like wildfire. "Mom, I need to see you, in person. There's something about Victoria you need to know." "Oh, honey, you two aren't fighting again, are you? You know how much it hurts me when my girls don't get along." "This isn't about getting along, Mom. This is about Dad." I could hear her sharp intake of breath. "What about your father?" "I think Victoria killed him." The words hung in the air, like a death sentence. When Mom spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. "Rachel Marie Morrison, that is a terrible thing to say about your sister. I have proof." Another long silence. Then, "Come to Portland tonight and bring whatever proof you think you have." As I packed a bag, I realized I was about to shatter. Our mother's world, just like Victoria, had shattered mine. But some truths are too important to keep buried, even if they destroy everything in their path. I had no idea that Victoria was already 3 steps ahead of me. The drive to Portland should have taken 3 hours. I made it in 2.5, pushing my rental car through the rainy Washington night with a desperate urgency I couldn't shake. Every few minutes, I checked my rearview mirror, convinced I was being followed. Victoria had already proven she could reach into every corner of my life. Why not this? Mom lived in a beautiful craftsman house in the Alberta district, surrounded by rose gardens that she tended with the same obsessive precision Victoria brought to her corporate manipulations. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed all the lights were on. Every single window was blazing, like she was trying to hold back some terrible darkness. She met me at the door before I could even knock. At 63, our mother was still striking. Silver hair, perfectly styled, designer jeans that cost more than most people's rent, and those sharp green eyes that both Victoria and I had inherited. But tonight, she looked older than I'd ever seen her. Fragile. "Rachel, sweetheart, come in. I made coffee." Her hands were shaking as she poured from the carafe, and I noticed she'd set out Dad's favorite coffee cups, the ones with the Morrison Industries logo that he'd commissioned for their 20th wedding anniversary, back when they still loved each other. "Show me," she said simply, settling into her chair with the resignation of someone preparing to hear the worst news of their life. I opened the laptop and started with the recordings. As Victoria's voice filled the room, discussing Dad's accident, I watched our mother's face crumble like ancient parchment. She pressed her fingers to her lips, tears streaming down her cheeks. That can't be Victoria. She wouldn't." But even as she spoke, I could see the recognition in her eyes. She knew her daughter's voice. Then I showed her the autopsy report, the evidence of digitalis poisoning, the timeline that proved it wasn't natural causes. Mom's coffee cup slipped from her fingers, shattering against the hardwood floor. "My baby girl," she whispered. "My Victoria. She killed her own father? I'm sorry, Mom. I know how much this hurts, but you don't know anything." The voice from behind me made my blood freeze. Victoria stood in the doorway, perfectly composed, holding a key in her manicured hand. "I still have my key from college," she said, stepping into the room like she owned it. "I've been here for an hour, listening to you poison our mother's mind against me." I spun around, my heart hammering. "How did you know you were coming?" "Here? Really, Rachel? You always run to Mommy when things get difficult. You've been doing it since we were 5. She moved to Mom's chair and placed a protective hand on her shoulder. "Don't listen to her, Mom. Rachel's having some kind of breakdown, the stress of losing her job, her identity crisis. I think she needs professional help." I stared at her in disbelief. "Are you seriously trying to gaslight me right now, in front of all this evidence?" "Evidence?" Victoria laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You mean these fabricated recordings? These forged documents? You've outdone yourself this time, sister." The USB drive came from Dad's safe. The USB drive you could have created on any computer. The documents you could have altered. The letters you could have written in Dad's handwriting. You always were good at forgery, remember? All those fake sick notes in high school? I felt reality tilting around me. She was rewriting history in real time, and I could see it working on Mom, the doubt creeping into her eyes. "I don't understand," Mom said softly. "Why would Rachel make up something so horrible?" Victoria's voice became gentle, caring, the perfect concerned sister. "Because she's been struggling with jealousy for years, Mom. She couldn't handle me being named CEO. She couldn't accept that she wasn't the chosen one anymore." "That's not true," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. "Isn't it?" Victoria pulled out her phone and showed Mom the screen. "Look at Rachel's search history from the past week. How to fake legal documents. Voice alteration software. Creating false evidence. She's been planning this for days." My mouth fell open. "You hacked my computer." "I didn't have to hack anything. You left your laptop open at the office when security escorted you out. Very careless." But I knew that was a lie. I never left my laptop open. She was using her tech connections to fabricate my search history, just like she'd fabricated everything else. "Mom, you have to believe me." "Victoria." Victoria's what, sweetheart?" Mom's voice was tired now, broken. "My daughter who built an international empire? My daughter who takes care of me, visits me every month, calls me every Sunday? Or are you asking me to believe she's a cold-blooded murderer based on evidence that, conveniently, only you possess?" The trap was closing around me, and I could feel it. Victoria had played this perfectly. She'd known exactly what I would do, exactly where I would go, and she'd been waiting. "I think Rachel needs help," Victoria said softly. "Professional help. Mom, would you be willing to sign a statement saying you're concerned about her mental state? For her own good?" And that's when I realized this wasn't just about the company anymore. Victoria wasn't just trying to destroy my career or my reputation. She was trying to have me committed. I ran. It was the only option left. As Victoria and Mom whispered together in the living room, probably discussing which psychiatric facility would be best for my treatment, I slipped out through the kitchen door into the cold Portland rain. Rental car was blocked in by Victoria's BMW, so I ran on foot through the residential streets, my mind racing faster than my legs. I had maybe 30 minutes before Victoria realized I was gone. 30 minutes to figure out how to fight back against someone who had orchestrated every move of this chess game years in advance. I found shelter in an all-night diner on Alberta Street, the kind of place where nobody asked questions if you looked like hell. The waitress, a woman with kind eyes and tattoo sleeves, poured me coffee without being asked and didn't comment on my shaking hands. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my contacts. Who could I trust? Who hadn't been compromised? Elena wasn't answering. Janet from accounting had gone silent. Even my own mother was being turned against me. Then I remembered someone Victoria didn't know about. Someone from my past that I'd kept private, Marcus Webb, my ex-fiancé. We'd been engaged 3 years ago, back when I still believed in happy endings and trusted people with my heart. Marcus was an investigative journalist with the Seattle Times, and our relationship had ended badly when he'd wanted to do an exposé on Morrison Industries' labor practices. I'd chosen the company over love, and he'd never forgiven me. But Marcus was good at his job, and he hated corruption more than he hated me. My fingers hesitated over his number. Calling him would be admitting I'd been wrong 3 years ago. It would be swallowing my pride and begging for help from someone who had every reason to hang up on me. But what choice did I have? Rachel. His voice was wary when he answered. It's 2 a.m. This better be good. Marcus, I need your help. My help? That's rich. Last time I tried to help, you accused me of trying to destroy your family's legacy. I was wrong. The words tasted like ashes. About everything. Victoria, my sister, she killed our father. Silence stretched across the connection. When Marcus spoke again, his voice had changed. The journalist in him was awakening. Tell me everything. Start from the beginning. I told him about the USB drive, the evidence, the trap Victoria had set. I told him about the psychiatric commitment threat and the systematic destruction of my credibility. As I talked, I watched Marcus transform from my bitter ex into the investigative reporter who'd won a Pulitzer for exposing political corruption. Where are you now? He asked. Portland, some diner on Alberta Street. Stay there. Don't move, don't call anyone, don't use your credit cards. I'm driving down. Marcus, why would you help me after what I did to you? Because 3 years ago, you chose your family over the truth. But if you're right about Victoria, then the truth and justice for your family are the same thing now. He arrived 2 hours later, looking exactly like I remembered. Rumpled jacket, 5 o'clock shadow at 4 a.m., and those intense dark eyes that had always seen right through my corporate masks. He slid into the booth across from me and studied my face like he was reading a crime scene. You look terrible, he said. Thanks. That's exactly what a woman wants to hear. It's not an insult. It's confirmation. 3 years ago, you were polished, controlled, never a hair out of place. Now you look like someone who's been to hell, which means you're probably telling the truth. He pulled out a tablet and legal pad. Show me everything. For the next hour, I walked Marcus through all of Dad's evidence. He made notes, asked sharp questions, and occasionally whistled low under his breath. When I played Victoria's recorded conversations about making Dad's death, look accidental, his jaw tightened. This is good, he said finally, but it's not enough. What do you mean not enough? She confessed to planning murder. She confessed to planning an accident that never happened. Your father died of apparent heart failure at home, not from a fall downstairs. A defense attorney would argue these recordings show she considered violence but never acted on it. My heart sank. So she wins? I didn't say that. Marcus leaned forward, and I saw the predatory smile that had made corrupt politicians lose sleep. Your sister made one crucial mistake. She's too confident. She thinks she's won, which means she's going to get sloppy. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we give her enough rope to hang herself. But first, we need to make sure you don't end up in a psychiatric facility, because that's her next move. Marcus was right. My phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Rachel, Mom and I are worried about you. Please come back so we can get you the help you need. Another text. I've spoken to Dr. Harrison about your situation. He has experience with stress-induced psychosis. She's not wasting time, Marcus observed. How long before she can have you involuntarily committed? In Washington State? If she gets 2 medical professionals to sign off and claims I'm a danger to myself or others. 72 hours. Then we have 72 hours to destroy her. Marcus's plan was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of running from Victoria's narrative, we were going to use it against her. If she wanted to portray me as unstable and dangerous, we'd give her exactly what she expected. But what Victoria didn't know was that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one who has nothing left to lose. And I had absolutely nothing left to lose. The Seattle Times building at 4 a.m. was a cathedral of journalism. Empty desks bathed in fluorescent light, the ghost of deadline pressure still lingering in the air. Marcus led me through the maze of cubicles to his office, where he'd already begun assembling what he called the kill file. Victoria's weakness is her need for control, he explained, spreading photographs and documents across his desk. She's spent years building this perfect image, the brilliant CEO, the devoted daughter, the successful sister who rose above family dysfunction. But narcissists can't resist gloating when they think they've won. He pulled up audio recording software on his computer. We're going to call her. You're going to sound broken, defeated, ready to confess to making everything up. And she's going to reveal more than she should because she can't resist twisting the knife. What if she's too smart for that? She's not. Trust me, I've seen it 100 times. The moment predators think their prey is helpless, they show their true nature. Marcus fitted me with a tiny recording device and coached me on the performance of my life. I had to sound genuinely broken, not difficult given my current state, but also hint at having one final card to play, something that would make Victoria feel threatened enough to reveal her hand completely. At exactly 6 a.m., when Victoria would be having her morning coffee and reading financial reports like the perfect executive she pretended to be, I made the call. Victoria, it's me. Rachel. Her voice was cool but satisfied. I was wondering when you'd come to your senses. Are you ready to get help? I can't do this anymore, I said, letting my voice crack. The stress, the paranoia. I think you're right. I think I am having some kind of breakdown. Oh, sweetheart. Victoria's tone became sickeningly sweet. I know this is hard, but admitting you have a problem is the first step. I want to make a deal. What kind of deal? I'll confess that I made everything up, the recordings, the documents, all of it. I'll sign whatever papers you want, agree to psychiatric treatment, disappear completely, but I want something in return. You're hardly in a position to negotiate, Rachel. Dad left me something you don't know about. I paused, letting the silence build. A safety deposit box at First National Bank, the one downtown on Pike Street, box 247. I could practically hear Victoria's breathing change. What's in the box? I don't know. I never opened it. But he gave me the key right before he died and told me it was insurance, whatever that means. Another pause. When Victoria spoke again, her mask was slipping. You're lying. Dad would have told me about any safety deposit box. Would he? When he was already suspicious about the missing money, when he'd already hired that private investigator. How do you know about... Victoria caught herself, but it was too late. She'd just confirmed she knew about Dad's investigation. Give me the key, Rachel. Not until you tell me the truth about what happened to him." "Nothing happened to him. He had a heart attack." "Then why do you care about some empty safety deposit box?" The silence stretched for 30 seconds. When Victoria spoke again, her voice was completely different, cold, predatory. The real Victoria finally emerging. "You want the truth, sister? Fine. Dad was weak. He built this company through luck and good timing, not skill. He was going to run it into the ground with his outdated thinking and sentimental attachment to worthless employees. So you killed him." "I freed him. And I freed the company. The digitalis made it peaceful. He just went to sleep and didn't wake up. Much better than watching him suffer through years of dementia and decline." Marcus's eyes widened across the desk. "She was confessing everything. And the beauty of it," Victoria continued, "is that everyone will remember him as the brilliant founder who died at his peak. His legacy stays intact, and the company gets the leadership it deserves. Everybody wins. Except Dad, and except me." Victoria laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. "Oh, Rachel, you still don't understand. This was never about you. You were just collateral damage. The company couldn't have two heirs splitting the vision. It needed one strong leader, not a committee. You've been planning this since we were kids, haven't you?" "Since we were 12, and Dad said he couldn't decide which twin would inherit the business someday. That's when I realized I'd have to make the decision for him. My blood turned to ice. 23 years of planning. Victoria had been orchestrating my destruction since middle school." "The safety deposit box, Rachel. Where's the key?" "There is no safety deposit box," I said quietly. "There is no key. I made it up to get you to confess." The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the fluorescent lights humming overhead. "You recorded this conversation," Victoria said finally. "Every word. Nobody will believe it. I'll say you fabricated it, just like everything else." "Maybe. But Marcus Webb at the Seattle Times has been listening to every word. And unlike my word against yours, this is going to be front-page news backed by one of the most respected investigative journalists in the Pacific Northwest." Marcus leaned forward and spoke into the phone. "Hello, Victoria. This is Marcus Webb." "I think we need to talk." The line went dead. 3 hours later, Victoria's arrest warrant was signed. By noon, she was in custody. By 6 p.m., the story was breaking across every major news outlet in the region. I stood in the Morrison Industries lobby that evening, watching the news crews set up their cameras outside. The same marble floors that Victoria had wanted to use for Dad's accidental death were now the backdrop for her downfall. Elena appeared beside me, her eyes red from crying. "I'm sorry I couldn't help you sooner," she said. "She threatened to have me fired if I talked to you." "You helped when it mattered most," I told her. "The envelope you gave me started everything." "What happens now?" I looked around the lobby, at the portraits of 3 generations of Morrison family leadership, at the employees trickling back to work after the chaos of the arrest, at the company that had been built on hard work and nearly destroyed by ambition. "Now we rebuild," I said. "The right way this time." As I signed the papers that made me CEO, using the same pen Dad had given me years ago, I thought about Victoria sitting in her jail cell, finally stripped of all her masks and machinations. She'd spent 23 years planning the perfect crime, but she'd forgotten one crucial detail. The truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep you try to bury it. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who know exactly where we're most vulnerable, because they're family. Victoria didn't just betray me professionally, she weaponized 23 years of sisterhood, every shared secret, every moment of trust, and turned it into ammunition. But here's what I learned. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. The signs were always there, I just chose to explain them away because I couldn't imagine my own twin sister was capable of such calculated evil. The Morrison Industries scandal dominated headlines for months. Victoria was eventually sentenced to life in prison for first-degree murder and corporate fraud. The company survived, stronger than ever, built on transparency instead of manipulation. As for me, I kept Dad's pen on my desk as a reminder that sometimes the most important signatures we make aren't on contracts or legal documents. Sometimes they're the moments when we decide to fight for the truth, no matter the cost. Here's what I want to ask you. Have you ever had someone close to you reveal their true nature in a moment of crisis? How did you rebuild your ability to trust after that betrayal? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who's going through their own family nightmare. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe for more true stories of family secrets and corporate corruption, and ring that notification bell. These stories matter because they remind us that we're not alone in facing life's darkest betrayals. And sometimes, sharing our truth is the first step toward healing.